The stars looked different through Zephyrian eyes. Commander Vextal stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching distant galaxies spin slowly in the void. His 4 arms moved across control panels with practiced ease, while his triple-jointed fingers adjusted sensors that could see across impossible distances. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled this section of space. They had conquered 47 different species, each one falling to their superior technology and perfect military planning. Every battle was calculated. Every victory was expected. War to the Zephyrians was simply mathematics with weapons. "Commander," called Tactical Officer Morden from his station, "long-range sensors have detected something unusual in the Outer Rim territories." Vexthul turned his elongated head toward the younger officer. His silver skin reflected the bridge lights as he moved. "Define unusual." "A developing species, sir. They appear to have recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Primitive, but they show signs of rapid technological advancement." The commander moved to the sensor station with fluid grace. His species had evolved from aquatic creatures, and they still moved like they were swimming through water. On the main display, a small blue and green planet appeared, rotating slowly around a yellow star. "Earth," Mordoun read from his instruments. "Third planet in the Sol system. The dominant species calls themselves humans." Vexithul studied the readings with growing interest. The planet showed signs of extensive warfare. Nuclear weapons had been used. Cities bore scars from massive conflicts. Yet somehow the species had not destroyed itself completely. "Fascinating," he murmured. "Show me their military capabilities." The display changed to show human spacecraft. They were crude compared to Zephyrian vessels, held together with welds and powered by primitive fusion reactors. But there was something about their design that caught the commander's attention. "They were built for fighting, not exploration, sir. We're detecting one of their ships approaching our outer sensor grid," Morden reported. On the edge of space, Captain Jake Morrison guided his ship through the darkness between stars. The Nightfall was humanity's newest exploration vessel, equipped with their most advanced technology. To Jake, it represented the pinnacle of human achievement. To any Zephyrian, it would have looked like a flying scrap pile. "Ben, how are those engines holding up?" Jake called to his engineer. Ben Parker looked up from his console, wiping grease from his hands. "They're running hot, but they'll get us home. This new drive system is incredible. We're actually traveling faster than light." At the communications station, Sam Torres monitored radio frequencies from distant stars. "Still no signs of intelligent life out here, Captain. We might be alone in this part of space." Jake smiled at that. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. This mission was supposed to answer that question. They had traveled further from Earth than any human before them. "Lucy, what's our position?" Jake asked his pilot. Lucy Chen checked her navigation instruments. "We're about 12 light years from home, sir. Still in unexplored territory. That's when the sensors started screaming." "Captain," Sam shouted, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures. Multiple contacts approaching fast." Jake rushed to the sensor display. 3 ships appeared on the screen, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls reflecting starlight like polished metal. "Are they trying to communicate?" Jake asked. Sam shook his head. "No signals, sir, but they're definitely scanning us." The alien ships positioned themselves around the Nightfall in a perfect triangle formation. Their movements were precise, calculated like pieces moving across a chessboard. "Ben, I need everything the engines can give us," Jake ordered. "Captain, we can't outrun those things. Look at the size of them." Jake stared at the alien vessels on his screen. Any reasonable person would have surrendered immediately. The smart choice would have been to power down weapons and try to communicate. But Jake Morrison had never been accused of being reasonable. "Lucy, can you plot a course through that asteroid field?" Lucy looked at him like he was crazy. "Sir, that field is incredibly dense. No ship should attempt to navigate through it at high speed." "Exactly. They'll never expect it." Before anyone could argue, Jake gave the order. The Nightfall spun around and dove toward a nearby asteroid field at maximum speed. The alien ships hesitated for just a moment, as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. On the Zephyrian command ship, Vexthul watched in amazement as the primitive human vessel plunged into a navigation hazard that should have destroyed it instantly. "Sir, should we pursue?" asked Morden. "No, let them go. This is more interesting than a simple first contact." The Nightfall twisted and turned between massive rocks, its hull scraping against asteroid surfaces. Lucy flew with pure instinct, making split-second decisions that kept them alive. The alien ships tried to follow, but their larger size made it impossible to navigate the tight spaces. "They're falling behind," Sam reported. Jake nodded. "Take us home, Lucy. We have news to report." As the human ship disappeared into the asteroid field, Vexthul made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Morden, I want a full analysis of that encounter. How did they survive? What tactical principles were they using?" "Sir, I'm not sure they were using any tactical principles. Their actions seemed almost random." "Exactly, and that makes them dangerous." Vexthul turned to face his crew. "Contact the High Council. Inform them that we have discovered a species that requires special attention." Later that day, the Nightfall limped back to Earth with its incredible news. Humanity was not alone in the universe. There were other species out there with technology far beyond human understanding, but they had escaped. Through skill, luck, or pure stubbornness, they had encountered a superior force and lived to tell about it. In the depths of space, Vexthul began preparing his report for the Zephyrian High Council. This species called humans had shown something the Zephyrians had never encountered before. They had acted without logic, without proper planning, and somehow succeeded. This would require study. Careful, detailed study. The commander had no way of knowing that this decision would consume the next century of Zephyrian military planning. He could not have predicted that humanity's greatest strength would be the very thing that seemed like weakness to his logical mind. The humans had just declared themselves worthy of attention, and the Zephyrian Empire always paid very close attention to potential threats. 100 years passed like pages turning in a book. The Zephyrian Empire watched every page. From hidden observation posts scattered throughout human space, they recorded everything. Every war, every battle, every conflict that erupted across Earth and its growing colonies. The Zephyrians studied human warfare with the dedication of scientists, examining a new species of dangerous insect. General Alex Rodriguez was 93 years old when he first noticed the strange energy readings. He sat in his wheelchair on the observation deck of Luna Base, staring out at the stars through tired eyes. His body was failing, but his mind remained sharp as a blade. "Sir, are you seeing this?" Lieutenant Kate Murphy asked, pointing to her sensor display. Alex rolled his wheelchair closer to examine the readings. Faint energy signatures appeared and disappeared at the edge of their detection range. They had been showing up for decades, always during major military exercises or conflicts. "Run a full spectrum analysis," Alex ordered. "I want to know what's causing those readings." Kate worked at her console for several minutes before shaking her head. "The energy patterns don't match anything in our database, sir. Whatever's creating them is using technology we don't understand." Alex had seen enough warfare to recognize when someone was watching. During World War III, he had been a young soldier fighting in the ruins of Berlin. During the Mars Rebellion, he had commanded a battalion of Space Marines. Through every conflict, those strange readings had appeared. Someone was studying them. Light years away, in a massive space station hidden behind a gas giant, the Zephyrians continued their century-long research project. War Master Thekvol stood before a holographic display showing human military tactics from the past 100 years. "Show me the Normandy invasion again," he commanded. The hologram shifted to display beaches filled with human soldiers charging into enemy fire. Ships exploded in the water while men jumped over the sides and swam to shore. Aircraft fell from the sky as pilots continued their attacks even with damaged engines. "Analyze their tactical logic," Thekvol said to the artificial intelligence that processed the data. "No logical tactical framework detected," the AI responded. Human forces repeatedly chose courses of action with low probability of success. Yet they achieved victory through persistence and adaptability. Thekvol's forearms gestured in frustration. "Run the simulation again. There must be a pattern we're missing." The hologram reset and played again. Human soldiers advanced across an open beach while enemy weapons cut them down. By all military logic, the attack should have failed. But somehow, through sheer determination and willingness to sacrifice, they had succeeded. "Sir," called tactical analyst Mordun from his station, "I've completed the analysis of the Vietnam conflict. Display your findings." A new hologram appeared showing dense jungle warfare. Small groups of human fighters used hit-and-run tactics against a superior force. They set traps, used the environment to their advantage, and refused to fight conventional battles. The humans adapted their tactics to match their environment, Morden explained. When facing superior technology, they changed the rules of engagement entirely. Tekval studied the display with growing concern. How do we counter tactics that have no logical foundation? That's the problem, sir. We've analyzed over 300 human conflicts. Each time they face a superior enemy, they develop new approaches that shouldn't work according to military theory. On Earth, humanity continued to advance. Dr. Kate Sullivan worked in her laboratory, developing new shield technologies that could protect ships from energy weapons. She had no idea that alien observers were recording every breakthrough she made. Admiral Rick Davis oversaw the construction of Earth's first real battle fleet in the orbital shipyards above Mars. The new ships were sleek and powerful, armed with the latest human weapons. Each vessel represented decades of technological advancement. How many ships do we have operational? Rick asked his aide. 57 capital ships, Admiral, plus 300 fighters and support vessels. Rick nodded with satisfaction. It seemed like an impressive fleet to human eyes. The Zephyrians counted over 10,000 warships in their invasion armada. Back at the hidden observation station, Tekval reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Humans had spread to 17 star systems in the past century. Their technology had advanced dramatically. Their military was better organized and equipped, but they still fought the same way. Show me the recent battle at Proxima Colony, Tekval commanded. The hologram displayed a space battle where human forces were outnumbered 3-1 by rebel colonists. Instead of retreating, the human commander had ordered his ships to ram the enemy vessels. The tactic was suicidal by any logical standard, but it had worked. Sir, I believe I understand the human approach to warfare, Morden announced. Explain. They don't follow conventional military logic because they believe in something more important than logic. They fight for emotional reasons rather than strategic ones. Tekval considered this. Emotion is inefficient. It leads to poor decision-making, yes, sir. But it also makes them unpredictable. They will choose death over surrender. They will attempt impossible missions if they believe the cause is just. The War Master accessed his personal files, reviewing decades of human military history. In every major conflict, humans had demonstrated the same pattern. When faced with impossible odds, they fought harder. When logic said they should surrender, they found new ways to resist. This explains their survival as a species, Tekval realized. Any logical race would have destroyed itself in nuclear war. But humans chose to survive despite the cost. Dr. Sullivan published her research on advanced shield technology, unaware that alien sensors recorded every detail. Admiral Davis launched war games to test his new fleet, not knowing that hidden observers analyzed every maneuver. General Rodriguez, now confined to a hospital bed, continued to monitor those strange energy readings until his last day. He died convinced that someone was watching humanity, but he never learned who. As the century drew to a close, the Zephyrians completed their analysis. They had documented every human weapon, every tactical approach, every strategic doctrine. Their computers had run millions of battle simulations. War Master, Overlord Kethmar contacted Tekval from the homeworld. What is your assessment of the human threat? They are technologically inferior but tactically dangerous, Tekval reported. However, we have studied them for 100 years. We know how they think, how they fight, how they respond to every possible situation. Then you recommend invasion? Yes, my lord. We can counter every tactic they might use. We have prepared responses to every weapon in their arsenal. The invasion will succeed within hours of initiation. Kethmar's image nodded approvingly. Excellent. Begin final preparations. I want the human species conquered before they can develop more advanced technology. Tekval bowed formally. It will be done, my lord. We have studied them perfectly. There will be no surprises. As the transmission ended, Tekval felt the satisfaction of a job well done. A century of careful observation and analysis had prepared them for every possible scenario. The humans might be unpredictable, but the Zephyrians had recorded their unpredictability and learned to counter it. They were ready for war. What they didn't understand was that humans had spent that same century doing what humans do best, changing everything just when their enemies thought they had figured them out. The Zephyrian High Council chamber stretched across several miles of polished crystal. Overlord Kethmar sat on his throne of living metal, while hundreds of military commanders and analysts filled the vast space below him. Today would mark the end of a century of preparation. War Master Thekvol stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing the complete invasion plan. Every detail had been calculated. Every human response had been predicted and countered. "Begin your presentation," Kethmar commanded. The holograms shifted to show the Sol system in perfect detail. Human ships patrolled between planets while defense stations guarded major population centers. It looked impressive to human eyes, but to the Zephyrians it was pathetically inadequate. "We have identified 1,247 military targets across human space," Thekvol announced. "Our fleet will strike simultaneously at all locations. The humans will have no time to coordinate a response." The display zoomed in on Earth's orbital defenses. Their primary fleet consists of 57 capital ships and 300 support vessels. Our invasion force numbers 12,000 ships with superior firepower and shielding. Murmurs of approval rippled through the council chamber. The odds were overwhelming. "What about their tactical unpredictability?" asked Fleet Commander Zarkesh. "We have accounted for every possible human response," Thekvol replied confidently. "Our computers have analyzed over 300 years of human warfare. We know how they will react to each phase of our attack." The hologram showed detailed battle simulations. In every scenario, the Zephyrian fleet achieved complete victory within hours. The computer models were flawless. "They will attempt to use ramming attacks," Thekvol continued. "We have positioned interceptor squadrons to counter this tactic. They will try to hide in asteroid fields. Our sensors can track them through any debris. They will attempt suicide runs against our command ships. We have redundant command structures to prevent decapitation strikes." Kethmar leaned forward on his throne. "You seem very confident, War Master." "I am, my lord. We have studied the humans for 100 years. There is nothing they can do that we haven't prepared for." Light years away, Commander Lisa Brooke sat in the Deep Space Monitoring Station at the edge of the solar system. Her job was to watch for asteroids, solar flares, and other natural hazards that might threaten human colonies. She had been doing this work for 15 years without seeing anything more dangerous than a solar storm. Today was different. "Commander, I'm getting some strange readings on the long-range sensors," called Technician Bob Hayes. Lisa moved to his station and examined the display. Massive energy signatures were appearing at the very edge of their detection range. The readings were enormous, unlike anything in their database. "How many contacts?" she asked. Bob worked at his instruments for several minutes. "I'm counting. This can't be right. I'm showing over 10,000 separate energy sources." Lisa felt ice form in her stomach. "Double-check those readings." Bob ran the scan again with the same results. "Confirmed, Commander. 10,000 plus contacts approaching the solar system at high speed. Estimated arrival time 6 minutes. Lisa grabbed the emergency communication device with shaking hands. "This is Deep Space Monitor Station Alpha. I need immediate connection to Earth Defense Command." The connection established within seconds. Admiral Pete Johnson's face appeared on the screen, looking annoyed at being awakened in the middle of the night. "This better be important, Brooks," he grumbled. "Sir, we have incoming contacts. Massive fleet, unknown origin. They'll be in our system in 6 minutes. Pete's expression changed instantly from annoyance to alarm. "How many ships?" "Over 10,000, sir." Pete was quiet for a long moment, processing the impossible number. Earth's entire military couldn't field more than a few hundred ships. An enemy fleet of 10,000 meant only one thing: invasion. "Sound general alert," Pete ordered. "All ships to battle stations. Activate planetary defenses. Get me a direct line to every fleet commander in the system." Alarms began wailing across human space. On Mars, Captain Maria Santos rushed to her ship as her crew scrambled to prepare for launch. At Jupiter Station, Colonel Tim Walsh ordered his fighter squadrons to immediate launch. Throughout the solar system, human forces prepared for a battle they knew they couldn't win. In the Zephyrian fleet, Thekvol watched as his ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. The formation was perfect. Every ship knew its target. Every weapon was charged and ready. "Sir, we're detecting human military communications," reported Communications Officer Veltan. "They're attempting to coordinate their defenses." "As expected," Thekvol replied. "Display their fleet positions." The hologram showed human ships moving to defensive positions around Earth and Mars. Their movements matched the computer predictions perfectly. Begin Phase 1, Thekavol commanded. The first wave of Zephyrian ships accelerated toward Earth's outer defenses, their weapons charged with energy that could vaporize asteroids. Their shields activated with power that could deflect nuclear weapons. Admiral Pete Johnson stood in Earth Defense Command, watching the impossible sight of 10,000 enemy ships approaching his home. He had 57 ships to defend 17 human colonies. The mathematics of defeat were simple and obvious. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his aide. Pete stared at the tactical display for a long moment. Every military textbook would tell him to surrender immediately. Any logical commander would try to negotiate terms to save human lives. The smart choice was obvious, but Pete Johnson had been born on Earth, raised under Earth's sky, and he would be damned if he would let aliens take his world without a fight. All ships prepare for combat. If we're going down, we're taking as many of them with us as possible. Sir, the odds are impossible. Since when has that stopped us? Pete smiled grimly. Signal all commanders, ignore standard tactics. This is going to get messy. On the bridge of his command ship, Thekful watched human forces moving into defensive positions exactly as predicted. The computer models were working perfectly. Sir, the humans are transmitting on all frequencies, Veltan reported. What are they saying? It appears to be music, sir. Thekful's forearms gestured in confusion. Music? Yes, sir. Some kind of battle song called Born in the USA by someone named Bruce Springsteen. For the first time in a century of planning, Thekful felt a moment of uncertainty. This behavior wasn't in any of their computer models. Why would a species broadcast music while facing certain destruction? Ignore it, he decided. Continue the attack. The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation with mechanical precision. Every ship followed its assigned course. Every weapon targeted its designated enemy. But in the final moments before the battle began, something changed in the human transmissions. The music stopped, replaced by a single message broadcast from Admiral Pete Johnson himself. Attention, alien fleet. You've been watching us for 100 years, but you still don't understand humans. We don't fight because we think we can win. We fight because some things are worth dying for. Let's see what you learned from all that studying. Thekavol felt a chill run through his silver skin. How did the humans know they had been observed? But it was too late to worry about intelligence failures. The attack had begun. The most devastating 6 minutes in galactic history were about to unfold. The Zephyrian fleet moved like a vast machine across space. 12,000 ships in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy shields that could deflect anything humans might throw at them. War Master Thekful stood on his command bridge, watching as the first phase of the invasion began exactly as planned. Target the human command ship, he ordered. Destroy their admiral first to break their chain of command. Admiral Pete Johnson's flagship, the Liberty, accelerated toward the alien fleet with all weapons blazing. The ship's hull bore scars from a dozen previous battles, and its crew had served together for over 10 years. To the Zephyrians, it looked like a primitive vessel rushing toward certain destruction. Sir, they're targeting us specifically, reported Weapons Officer Gary Stone. Pete nodded grimly. They want to cut off the head of the snake. Standard military doctrine. He opened a channel to all human ships. All vessels, the enemy is trying to take out command and control. Don't let them think in straight lines. Captain Maria Santos received the transmission on her destroyer Defiance. She was supposed to be protecting the orbital shipyards around Mars, but the enemy fleet was heading for Earth. Military logic said she should stay and defend her assigned target. Instead, she did something that made no sense at all. Helm. Set course for the enemy flagship. Maximum speed. Her navigation officer looked confused. Ma'am, we're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. We should fall back to defensive positions. Since when do we do what we should do? Maria smiled fiercely. Tell me, what's the biggest ship in their fleet? That massive command vessel in the center, ma'am. It's the size of a small moon. Perfect. That's our target. The Defiance broke from formation and charged directly at the center of the enemy fleet. Its engines burned at maximum power, while its weapons fired continuously at anything that came within range. On the Zephyrian command ship, Tactical Officer Morden watched in confusion as the human vessel approached. Sir, One of their destroyers is attempting a direct assault on our position, he reported to Thekvol. Impossible. That's suicide. No commander would order such an attack. Nevertheless, sir, they're closing on our position at high speed. Thekvol checked his tactical displays. The computer model showed that human commanders might attempt desperate tactics when facing defeat, but a single ship attacking a fleet made no military sense. Deploy interceptors. Destroy it before it reaches us. But before the interceptors could respond, something even stranger happened. Colonel Tim Walsh's fighter squadron was supposed to be defending Jupiter Station. Instead, they had flown directly into the middle of an asteroid field and were using mining charges as improvised missiles. Control, this is Wolf Squadron, Tim broadcast. We're turning these space rocks into weapons. Any alien ship that comes through here is going to have a very bad day. Lieutenant Amy Foster was an engineer on a supply ship that carried replacement parts to distant colonies. When the invasion began, she was supposed to evacuate civilians from the outer planets. Instead, she had rigged her cargo of reactor cores to explode like bombs. This is the cargo hauler Big Mama, she announced cheerfully over the radio. I've got a delivery for anyone who wants to catch me. Her ship, loaded with enough explosive material to destroy a small city, dove into the middle of the enemy formation with Amy laughing like a maniac at the controls. Thekvol stared at his tactical displays in growing alarm. The humans weren't following any logical battle plan. They were acting like they had all gone insane at the same time. Sir, our formation is being disrupted, Morden reported. The humans are using tactics that don't appear in any of our databases. Explain. They're ramming our ships with cargo vessels, sir, using mining equipment as weapons, flying attack patterns that violate basic principles of physics. Captain Steve Miller demonstrated this perfectly when his damaged cruiser Vengeance lost its main engines in the opening minutes of battle. Instead of withdrawing for repairs, he used the ship's gravity drive to pull his vessel directly into a Zephyrian battleship. If we can't fly away from them, we'll fly through them, Steve announced, as his ship tore a hole through the enemy vessel's hull. Engineer Carol Adams took this philosophy even further. When her space station lost main power, she overloaded the backup generators to create an energy pulse that fried every electronic system within a light-minute radius. Sometimes the best defense is a really good explosion, she explained to her terrified crew as alien ships went dark all around them. But perhaps the most impossible moment came when pilot Dan Green found himself surrounded by 50 enemy fighters. Military doctrine said he should surrender or attempt to escape. Instead, Dan did something that defied both logic and physics. He flew his fighter in a spiral pattern that somehow used the enemy ship's own weapons fire to accelerate his vessel beyond its design limits. The maneuver should have torn his ship apart, but instead it allowed him to destroy 12 enemy fighters before they realized what was happening. How did he do that? Morden asked in bewilderment. I have no idea, Thekvol admitted. Our computers cannot calculate the physics of that maneuver. Back on Earth, Admiral Pete Johnson watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. His fleet was being destroyed, but they were taking the enemy with them in ways that no computer could have predicted. Sir, we're receiving reports from all sectors, his communications officer announced. The enemy fleet is in disarray. They seem confused by our tactics. Good, Pete replied. They studied our old battles, but they never learned to think like humans. The truth was becoming clear to the Zephyrian command. Their century of careful observation had prepared them for human warfare as they understood it. But humans excelled at changing the rules when the situation became desperate. Sir, we're losing ships faster than projected, Morden reported with obvious panic in his voice. Thekvol could hardly believe the tactical displays. His superior fleet was being defeated by an enemy that refused to fight according to logical principles. Sir, the human admiral is broadcasting again, the communications officer announced. Put it through. Pete Johnson's face appeared on the main screen, blood running from a cut on his forehead but his eyes still blazing with determination. Attention, alien commander. You spent 100 years watching us fight wars, but you only studied our victories and defeats. You never learned the most important thing about humanity. What is that? Thekvol found himself asking. Pete smiled grimly. We don't know when to quit. The Liberty exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking 3 enemy vessels with it. But Pete's final message continued broadcasting from relay stations throughout the solar system. The battle was far from over, and the humans were just getting started. Thekvol realized with growing horror that all their careful planning meant nothing. The humans weren't just unpredictable, they were impossible. 3 minutes into the battle, the Zephyrian invasion fleet was in complete chaos. War Master Thekvol watched his perfect formation crumble as human forces did things that should have been impossible. "Sir, we've lost over 3,000 ships," Tactical Officer Morden reported with obvious panic. "The humans are using tactics that violate every principle of warfare." Thekvol stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Captain Maria Santos had somehow used her single destroyer to ram through 17 enemy vessels before her ship finally exploded. Engineer Carol Adams had turned an entire space station into a massive bomb. Pilot Dan Green was flying attack patterns that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "How are they doing this?" Thekvol demanded. "Sir, I believe they've abandoned all logic," Morden replied. "They're fighting like they have nothing to lose. Every species has something to lose. Their homeworld, their colonies, their lives. That's what makes no sense, sir. They know they're going to die, but they're fighting harder because of it." On the bridge of the cruiser Determination, Captain Lisa Brooks had just received word that Admiral Pete Johnson was dead. Instead of demoralizing her crew, the news seemed to make them more determined. "Attention all hands," she announced over the ship's communication system. "The Admiral is gone, but his message lives on. We don't know when to quit." Her ship was damaged and running low on ammunition, but Lisa had noticed something about the enemy vessels. Their formation was too perfect, too predictable. They were fighting like a computer program instead of thinking beings. "Helm, take us through the center of their fleet," she ordered. "Ma'am, that's suicide." "Maybe, but they'll never expect it." The Determination dove straight into the middle of the enemy formation, firing in all directions. The Zephyrian ships tried to respond, but their coordination was breaking down. Ships began firing at shadows, hitting their own vessels in the confusion. Meanwhile, at the asteroid mining station in the belt between Mars and Jupiter, Supervisor Jim Clark was making a discovery that would change everything. "We've got company coming," his sensor operator reported. "Enemy fleet approaching our position." Jim looked at the massive mining equipment around him. Rock crushers that could pulverize asteroids, fusion torches that could melt through anything, industrial machinery designed to tear apart celestial bodies. "Boys," he announced to his crew, "I think it's time we showed these aliens what human engineering can really do." The mining station began launching asteroids at the approaching enemy fleet. But these weren't ordinary rocks. Jim's crew had attached mining charges to each one, turning them into guided missiles the size of buildings. Thekvol watched in horror as his third wave ships were demolished by flying mountains. "Sir, the humans are using mining equipment as weapons," Morden reported. "That equipment isn't designed for warfare. They don't seem to care, sir." The truth was becoming clear. Humans didn't fight according to rules because they saw every situation as unique. They adapted instantly to whatever was available, turning anything into a weapon if necessary. In Sector 7, mechanic Tony Rodriguez was trapped on a damaged space station with no weapons and no way to escape. But he had a workshop full of spare parts and a lifetime of experience fixing broken machinery. "If I can't fight them," he muttered to himself, "maybe I can make their ship stop working." Tony began broadcasting a signal that interfered with Zephyrian navigation systems. It wasn't supposed to work, but somehow his jury-rigged transmitter was causing enemy ships to lose control and crash into each other. Back on the command ship, Thekvol was receiving reports that made no sense. "Sir, our ships in Sector 7 are experiencing navigation failures," Morden announced. "What kind of failures?" "They appear to be receiving conflicting signals from a human maintenance worker, sir." "One maintenance worker is disrupting our entire 7th Fleet?" "Yes, sir. He's using spare parts to broadcast interference signals." Thekvol felt something he had never experienced before: complete tactical confusion. His species had conquered 47 different civilizations using superior technology and perfect planning. But humans seemed to create new solutions from nothing. In the asteroid field, Colonel Tim Walsh was proving this point perfectly. His fighter squadron had run out of conventional missiles 20 minutes ago. Now they were using anything they could find as projectiles. Wolf 2, Grab that piece of space junk and throw it at the enemy formation, Tim ordered. Sir, that's just debris from a destroyed ship. Debris with sharp edges. Use your imagination. The fighter grabbed a chunk of twisted metal and hurled it at an enemy vessel with enough force to punch through the hull. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. As the battle entered its 5th minute, something unprecedented happened. The Zephyrian fleet began to retreat. Thekvol couldn't believe what he was ordering, but the mathematics were clear. His superior force was being destroyed by an enemy that refused to follow any logical pattern. All ships, withdraw to safe distance, he commanded. Sir, we still outnumber them, Morden protested. Numbers mean nothing if we can't predict their behavior. They're not fighting a war. They're improvising chaos, but the humans weren't finished. As the alien fleet tried to withdraw, Captain Janet Parker made a decision that would become legendary. Her ship Persistence was the last functional vessel in Earth's defensive fleet. Its weapons were gone, its shields were down, and its hull was held together by emergency patches. Any reasonable commander would have surrendered. Instead, Janet did something that summarized humanity perfectly. Engineering. Can you give me ramming speed? Ma'am, the engines are barely holding together. I only need them to work for 2 more minutes. The Persistence accelerated toward the Zephyrian command ship with its crew singing the old Earth song, We Shall Overcome. It wasn't military protocol, but it felt right. Thekvol watched the damaged human ship approaching his position and realized something profound. The humans weren't trying to win in any conventional sense. They were trying to prove that some things were more important than survival. Sir, should we destroy the approaching vessel? Morden asked. Thekvol stared at the tactical display for a long moment. His fleet could still win this battle through sheer numbers. But what would be the point? The humans had already proved that superior technology meant nothing against absolute determination. No, he decided. Signal the fleet. Full retreat, sir. We came here to conquer a species we could understand and defeat. These humans, they cannot be conquered because they refuse to accept defeat as possible. As the Zephyrian fleet retreated toward deep space, Captain Janet Parker brought her ship alongside the alien command vessel instead of ramming it. Attention, alien commander, she broadcast. You studied our wars for 100 years, but you learned about the wrong thing. You studied our fighting, but you never understood why we fight. Thekvol found himself responding. Explain. We don't fight because we're logical. We fight because we're human. And being human means never giving up, even when giving up makes perfect sense. The Persistence limped back toward Earth as the alien fleet disappeared into the darkness between stars. 6 minutes after it began, the invasion was over. Humanity had faced impossible odds and won, not through superior firepower or brilliant strategy, but through the simple refusal to accept defeat. In the weeks that followed, the Zephyrian Empire spread word throughout the galaxy. Earth was to be avoided at all costs, not because humans were technologically advanced, but because they were completely, utterly, and dangerously unpredictable. And in the depths of space, War Master Thekvol filed his final report. Conquest of humanity is inadvisable. They do not fight wars. They fight for principles that make no logical sense, which makes them impossible to defeat through conventional means. Humanity had won their first interstellar war by being exactly what they had always been: human.